courthouse. Along with we have Daryl Parks standing by to give us some analysis on how the family's holding up. So a very long and protracted hearing this morning, over 2 hours. I think the judge was a little disgruntled at how long that took, and in the end, no decision was even made on that animation.
Yeah, we want to bring in Mr. Parks right off the bat, and we are fortunate enough to be able to check in with him every so often to see how things are going from the actual courthouse. Daryl, thanks for joining us again. Really, really difficult testimony, I'm sure, for the Martin family. We're hearing from Dr. DeMaio, the medical examiner, who is really combing through the minutiae of the crime scene, what happened, even showing photos in some instances of their son. First of all, I want to ask, how are they holding up, and are they committed to staying through every bit of testimony, no matter how difficult it is?
Well, it gets tougher and tougher, and I think you have to remember it's sort of like an endurance test for them. They've been at this a while now, and it's wearing on them a little bit, but they're trying to endure even through the tough parts of the testimony. It's been 4 weeks, so they continue to press on in dealing with the issues. One of the great things is that they have great family support. The people that you see sitting with them are their family, and their family is giving them tremendous support. There's even family who's not present in the courtroom here to support them.
What about the deposition with Mr. Crump? We keep hearing that he may be called to testify at some point, or that we may hear from him soon. Do you have any insight into that, Daryl?
Well, we now know that they are nearing the end of the case, so if they're going to call him, it'll probably be tomorrow or thereabout. The deposition was Sunday, lasted a little over 2 hours. I really don't think it was ever really about the information that he has. I think it was more so about them trying to protest against how the case was brought here, and probably most importantly, trying to keep him out of the courtroom while the trial was going on. So that's another side issue. The one thing we as lawyers have always wanted to do is not be the center of the case, and the attention not to be on us. So we'll see what happens with that. Ben is in town, I can tell you. He's ready to go whenever they get ready for him. And I think that if he should take a stand, he has a lot to tell them.
Mr. Parks,
that they may not want to hear.
Well, Mr. Parks, let me ask you, because his testimony, if they do bring him to the stand, the idea would be to make sure that his testimony lines up with Mr. Martin's testimony as well, especially the timeline of, were you asked to have that audio cleaned up when you identified, the issue yesterday, whether or not it was Trayvon who was screaming in the background. How did Mr. Martin feel that he did in his testimony?
Mr. Martin did fine. I think Mr. Martin's take on it was what it was, in that Mr. Martin had heard a series of 911 calls. He also heard the last 911 call that had the fatal gunshot to his son. Reasonable people would understand that his focus was on that shot, not whose voice was screaming for help. On the shot that killed his son was his focus. But also, let me be clear here. Detective Serino said some very important things. Number one, he said that Singleton was not there. Number two, he said that when I asked him, as Mr. Martin pushed away under his breath, I interpreted what he said to mean no. So that speaks for itself. And so, for the defense to do what they've been doing all along, what I call lawyer testifying, to then say categorically he said no, that's not the testimony. That is a mischaracterization of the testimony.
Can you give us the flip side of Bill Lee Jr.'s testimony when he was talking about how the city manager brought the entire family in to listen to the 911 call, the implication being that there was some politics that was being played in that? What was the family's take on that? What are we all missing that the entire family was brought in to hear the 911 call at the same time?
Well, number one, Bill Lee's testimony should not have been in this case at all. It had nothing to do with the fact of what happened the night Trayvon Martin was killed, right? And now, Bill Lee's appearance in this case is political. And so, obviously, he shouldn't have been here testifying since he had nothing to do with what happened those 7 minutes. What they've tried to do is to and you see it coming out in various parts of the case, from the politics of the case. You continue to hear mention of the fact that the prosecutor in this case is not from here, right? And so it's as if to draw a divide between the jury and to cause them to make their decision, not based on the evidence in the case, but based upon the politics of it being a foreign prosecutor, not from here, of the fact that the case may have had some political implications at the beginning of it. You know, this case is about, once a decision was made to charge, then we deal with the evidence in the case to prove either guilt or innocence of George Zimmerman, not the politics of the case, because the politics of the case will continue to inflame everyone.
But Daryl, as a representative of the Martin family, you have to be concerned on some level that that exact thing will happen, that the politics will shroud the facts, and that perhaps even, I guess, in a worst case scenario, the jurors would get a taste of some of the chaos that surrounded the initial parts of those investigations. Is it a concern of yours that that will muddy their minds and affect their decisions?
Of course it would. I think that anytime you try and get people to make decisions on evidence outside of the evidence presented to them, which is improper, then that you don't want that to happen.
Daryl, I want to ask you what I think is a very important question. If the family does not get the justice they're seeking, and by that I mean if they don't get second-degree murder, would they be satisfied if they got manslaughter or some lesser charge against George Zimmerman?
I don't think they'd be happy. However, they have to also respect the fact that the court, as she has said time and time again, as lawyers have tried to improperly tell the jury what the law is, that the law and the jury instructions will come from the bench. So she will give the instructions, and the jury will decide does the evidence fit into which of the charges that she instructs them on. And so I think I should let it stay there. The family should let it stay there. We shouldn't comment on it, right? When we get to that point of them making their decision, the family obviously will respond in some type of way.
All right, Daryl Parks, we really appreciate your time. We know you've got important things to do. We appreciate you talking with us this afternoon. We're going to be back here with more from our legal analyst.